So what is the child and nature connection? Sander de Zwart, Dimitri Williams and I met in April last year at the Center for Sustainability Leadership through their flagship leadership program. We decided to explore why we care about nature and realized we have had many precious moments outside when we were young. Sander was Robin Hood in the woods. Dimitri explored the local creek and loved watching her uncle's bees. And I remember just wandering for hours, following wildlife in the bush around our place. So it was clear we wanted to do something with the children-nature connection. We met with and interviewed at least 30 leaders in the health, education, environment and community development sectors. And we still connect with new and wonderful people on a weekly basis. The Victorian Child and Nature Connection is a catalyst for rebuilding the connection between our children and the natural world. We're a cross-sectoral network dedicated to provide a unique meeting place for collaboration and capacity building. And we facilitate the sharing of experiences, ideas and knowledge, both old and new, amongst our members and allies. We believe that children in Victoria, all children, should have every opportunity to experience, love and look after nature. And it's our vision for the future of the network.
The purpose of the network is to bring people together. Tick, we seem to have done that pretty well. The purpose of the network is for us to share what we know, to share what we're doing and learning, and also to explore what we might do together. And so today is the first half-day seminar. It's a Hemi-seminar, and it's the first chance to really have this discussion full-time. So I'm really excited about this. We're all very, very pumped. So I'm going to get out of the way and introduce you to our first speaker. Joy is, she's the education coordinator from the Royal Botanic Gardens. She was one of the co-designers of the Ian Potter Foundation Children's Garden, and if you haven't seen the garden, what are you doing with your weekends? Go look at this thing. Today's a great chance to have a look at it, and take a kid with you, otherwise you really don't get the whole experience. Chris has been a pioneer in the whole concept of nature play. I love listening to this woman talk. Would you please welcome, from all the way from just over there, Joy!
My presentation today is going to look at play, nature play generally, and also more specifically its links to learning, and in particular the way we use it here at the Royal Botanic Gardens, both Melbourne and Cranbourne. We're going to look at ways that we've used nature play to make it work best for us, and some of the delights that we've had in observing children here. I'm also going to touch very briefly on where nature therapy or ecotherapy touches or rubs against nature play, which is really one and the same thing, just a different way of looking at it. So children, how do children react when we take them out into places like that? Well, one thing I observe immediately is that they are responding with all of their senses and all of their body. And I make the following observations. Firstly, it's a completely delightful experience for them, as it is for me. And they are expressing their delight with every part of themselves. Their faces light up, they become more thoughtful, and their questions are extraordinary, and their observations are absolutely acute. And I shift from suddenly I'm no longer the stranger, I'm almost a fairy godmother. So I want to talk more about that role of the adult in this learning process, and how children are longing for this connection with the sharing adult in their lives. So engaging sensorially, engaging physically provides us with the motive, the emotion, the motivation. All of those words are very connected to the arousal that inspires learning. Learning is not about absorbing information, absorbing facts. It's about understanding. And it's about how people integrate information with their own lives in a really passionate and truthful way. So of course learning about nature is about knowing the facts about nature, but it's also understanding the smells and the sounds and the physics of throwing and the momentum of rolling down a hill, and the processes and seasons and deciduousness, the smell of compost and nutrient cycles. And these things only happen when people do things. There was a little boy the other day marching along very confidently in front of me, with a big head of curly hair all around and very forthright, and he stopped and he turned around and he said, "Do you know what, Chris Joy?" He always calls me Chris Joy. He said, "There's only one thing that we really need to know." And I said, "What's that, Jonathan?" And he said, "Just to care for nature." So he could sum up his whole life's learning, and that's actually what we need to know. And I thought, what an extraordinary thing that a child that only comes up to my knee, 5 years of age, he sort of knows the clue of what it is we all need to know. I've got something that really brings a lot of delight into my life here. I've got some poo balls, and these poo balls are made from worm castings, and we had a lot of fun making them yesterday, as we have fun making them every day, and they're just the most great way to bring a child into the beauty and the magic of a worm farm. And so what I'm going to do in a moment is throw them into the audience. And you can see that it's nothing we need to worry about. It's actually a really fabulous thing to grab and hold. And also there's some lucky people around the audience as well that have a poo ball hiding underneath their chair. It's a bit like winning the raffle when you've got one under your chair. I guess this is just a fun way of turning something ordinary and everyday, like a worm farm, into a wonderful, exciting play experience. Play experiences are everywhere, waiting for us to connect with them. It just happens that this is a really great way to have sustainable practice. Again, nature's the perfect teacher, the adult, the perfect hand to hold in the process, and as the child searches for their own truth.
There's a beautiful quote from the astronomer Kepler. He said that children are born to delight, we are born to delight in the world. I love that. It's like this is what we're designed for, it's what we're programmed for. And we learn to be horrified, we learn to be revolted. And it takes some time to get us back once we're adults, but as kids that connection still is there. Does that make any sense? Any other thoughts? Yeah.
We talked about our childhood and the role nature played in our childhood.
Yeah.
It brought back those memories.
So you had access to it. Actually, when Chris got you to shut your eyes, did you actually imagine a real tree that you knew? Yeah, it was so weird. I just remember this tree I haven't seen since I was about 5. But bang, it just came back again. So I think we've been lucky. We probably weren't, breastfed by television. We probably weren't marinated in media, and we had the option. And there's a new generation that hasn't been out there yet. So maybe that's the thing we've got to try to bring back to connection. Sue Elliot is a long-time nature play advocate. She is a lecturer in early childhood at RMIT. She's been working on both this Bush Kinder project, which she'll tell you all about, but also she's here to share some of the international research that makes the case for getting those kids outdoors. Could you please give a big, gorgeous welcome to Sue Elliot.
And what's happening today? What are some of the current concerns? I've written about these a number of times. And I could spend a whole lecture talking about these current concerns. Yeah, I think the science says it all. You really have to be that warned, so risk averse, uneven natural surface. So for children in the literature, there's concerns about erosion, because my role today is to provide some of the theoretical and research background as to why inspiring nature play is important. I'm going to focus a little bit on the historical context and the concerns around nature and play to start with, and then particularly to focus on the benefits of play in nature as indicated by current research. And I'll be using photography that's just gone too far. And there is hope in that, because the UK has managed to turn that around quite significantly in the last decade. They now conduct benefit-risk analysis rather than just simply a risk audit. So there's movement in that direction. The disconnection from nature, which I'm certainly very passionate about, and its links with sustainability, and I'll elaborate more on that. And we've also got technology taking over, and increasing amount of research around the health impacts of the amount of technology that young children are being exposed to. So potentially what we've got is a generation with generational amnesia. Generational amnesia, a term that's been phrased by Kahn and Elliott. It's about the notion that with each successive generation, what we're doing is redefining nature. And I invite you to imagine a child growing up in that inner urban townhouse. What's their definition of nature going to be? Is it the little garden box and the vase of flowers, and that's it? But your definition of nature is informed by what you experienced as a child. Did you ramble down a local creek? Did you run through a paddock? Did you chase butterflies in a field? What did you do that informs your definition of nature? Where are we going with the current generation and their definition of nature? The cure for the lifestyle maladies of contemporary childhood seems glaringly obvious and simple. Outdoor play in nature. That's what children need most desperately. So what are the benefits of outdoor play in nature? And there's a range of literature that I can draw on to explore that. Time and time again they went back to what was their childhood experience. So it was the amount of times that they visited green spaces as a child that impacted on how they were as an adult in terms of their connections with green spaces. And it wasn't just the number of times they visited, but they also found links with people's sense of physical and emotional well-being when they're in nature, their willingness to be in nature alone, and seeing natural play spaces as opportunities for discovery and even perhaps magical. We also have the notions of that emotional and cognitive understanding of nature that children develop in their early years. Emotional connection in terms of an acquaintanceship with nature, a direct, intimate and tacit knowledge that affects us. And from a cognitive perspective, the meanings of nature do not grow on trees, but they must be constructed. The natural environment provides a sea of natural sensory stimuli for children. All right? These children are exploring a puddle, parallel play in a puddle, I'd say. That's what that's about. Who said that sensory stimuli for children need to be red, blue and yellow? I'd rather children being exploring the multitude of shades of green. The diversity of physical skill experiences that's promoted in nature. And the research here is very much coming from the forest preschool movements in Europe and the UK. So diverse physical experiences create opportunities for physical skill development, and they also support children's stamina. Children that have been to forest school, their stamina is much better. Natural environments also provide rich context for experiencing risk and practicing risk management skills. So the children have opportunities to test branches to find out whether they are climbable. Risk management is part of children's learning. It's not something that adults do separately, following a checklist. Risk management is active and it's practiced and it's shared between children and adults. There's a wealth of learning opportunities. And some of the research is now suggesting that if we bubble wrap children to the point that they don't experience risk management in childhood, then they haven't got the skills to deal with risk management as teenagers and young adults. A treasury of loose parts. That's what the natural environment provides for children, stimulates their creativity, their imagination, their sensory awareness in many different ways. There's also a growing amount of literature, again, I have to go back to the forest preschools and schools around the social, emotional and language benefits of being outside in nature for children. I think a lot of this stems from the notion that children can create those smaller green spaces, cubbies or dens or forts. There's lots of discussion, negotiation that has to happen about that. Communication is part of that too. We also are very aware that there are greater play affordances in natural environments for children. Children can be independent and confident and engaged learners in such places where the environment communicates to the children affordances. It's not about adults creating play opportunities for children, but affordances, which is Gibson's term, is the notion of how the environment communicates to the individual. So if a child sees a horizontal railing, it means it communicates climb. If they see a tree, it communicates climb. So it's about the relationship between the individual and what they're observing in the natural environment. And nature just has so many wonderful play affordances for children, whether it's rolling down a hill or collecting sticks or hiding behind a bush. There are so many different play opportunities there, more than what you'll find in a very generic and synthetic type of playground. What we need to be doing is developing natural play spaces, whether that's a bush kinder, a public park, an early childhood centre, a school, whatever the context. They are landscapes for children to embroider with the loose threads of nature. In such landscapes, children can create meaning, develop a sense of place, connect with the natural world, and feel empowered to live healthy and sustainable lives. Thank you.